My name is Kycell, and in my pursuit of the Forgotten Minotaur King, as I write this 31st chapter, I have found myself the semi-willing pawn in a prisoner rescue that could result in an all-out war. I strode the streets of the kingdom called Goldenrod, inquiring for the acquisition of all essential books, tomes, and documents belonging to the citizenry. I waived my writ of appropriation to various shopkeepers, mail clerks, and teachers, securing the papers and novels in a seemingly enchanted haversack given to me by Lord Natanus Carnager to mitigate the considerable weight I was tasked with hauling, all the while receiving minimal resistance as word of what the royal forces of the castle were capable of spread through the town, specifically the brutal assault of Marekind. Much to my surprise, the sudden and subtle infiltration of the Morongo Knights through the kingdom's medical university was seemingly still undiscovered. This was pleasant news, given the next steps of their plan, and while my assigned muscle and good friend Tristophe was off helping their leader obtain further infantry talent, when I felt I had acquired a significant haul of knowledge, I wordlessly made my way back to the castle, making sure to return before nightfall, when Lord Carnager's vampiric thralls roamed the library's halls. As I crept through the dungeon corridor that led to my repository, I made note to get an eyeful of the prisoner I was set to aid in escaping. The rotund and cowering Oxor Chungus, the white-furred mouseling diplomat, was no taller than my mouseling bodyguard Tristophe Myrink, but the pair of burly half-orcan guards that bracketed his cell were the true concern. I made eye contact with Oxor as I passed, pondering if, for a moment, it would be a good or wise decision to offer him a signal of camaraderie, a wink or a crafty smirk. But then I remembered the last time I and my co-worker Chinook tried communicating with the prisoner, and it simply resulted in him being beaten by the guards. So as I gazed at him in passing, he barely lifted his head, and so I averted my eyes, continuing on to the library. I entered the book hall, and as I did, an arrow of black ink plastered the wall next to my head. I quickly looked to the source of the bizarre attack and saw my pseudo-partner Chinook drenched in the substance. He was wiping his diminutive, draconic snout and beating his wings repeatedly in a frustrated attempt to clean himself.
I know I can get this right, Lord Carnager. Just give me some more time, a few more tries. That dolt Kycell won't be back any time soon. Oh.
I cleared my throat as I entered the library and sealed the oaken doors behind me. Lord Natanus Carnager, half-elven, stood hunched and cloaked as ever, the ink surreptitiously dodging him with every splatter. Chinook grimaced for a moment, then regained his composure and assumed his regular, haughty posture. He strode in my direction, leaving grimy claw prints on the hardwood floors.
I see you've done your half of the work. While my scryer training has been going along smoothly, I must take my leave and sanitize myself for the evening.
He then attempted to scoot past me and leave through the door. I did my best to avoid any ink contamination on my part as well. When he was partway through the entrance, the creaking noise of a gesturing, long-fingered claw eked from Carnager himself.
Don't forget, your real work begins tomorrow. Practice your ink transfers tonight, even at the inconvenience of your roommates in the staff's quarters.
With a deferential bow, Chinook scooted from the door, leaving only inky claw prints along the handles. I then humbly approached Lord Carnager myself. Removing my knapsack of hauling, I gingerly attempted to produce all of the tomes and documents I had obtained over the course of the day. Carnager simply looked on passively. When I was nearly complete, several stacks littered the library floors. That was when Natanus finally spoke up.
I see many medical texts here. I have heard word that a force of knights from Andron were holding the schools. These are from hostage.
Stutteringly, I said that I must have escaped before they had attacked the university.
Peculiar. I thought it was the first place you had went, and their supposed invasion was quite early this morning.
I panicked, muttering something nearly incoherent about simply being lucky, and I tried to change the subject to the shipping manifests from a very pretty bodega in the central of town. I began to feel sweat run all over my body as I remembered the mind compulsion Carnager had used on me during what would tentatively be called my job interview. If he executed the same trick now, then not only was my plan foiled, but I had little doubt I would be killed on this very spot. But Carnager simply picked up the manifest I had pointed out and perused it, instead of clutching my hands and paralyzing my body as he once had.
300,000 gold for only 50 pounds of a nondescript alcoholic beverage. Sounds like a smuggling scam, if I'd ever heard one. I'll have it redirected to Prince Jadeniston's little colony project up north. That should show those frogmen likely behind this little charade.
Putting the document back, Carnager then went on to a medical text on the treatment of undead, and paged through it with an inquisitive smirk for the remainder of my unloading. When my task was complete, I told Carnager that there may be more texts to collect tomorrow, but once again, he dismissively waved his gnarled and creaky hand.
You know, I know you're not blessed with the gift of magic, but I do sense a bit of the craft about you from time to time. If I were to hazard a guess, you are capable of reading magic texts and, passably enough, cast them.
Panic once again struck me still. Had he seen through my disguise spell I had ensorcelled a honey Myrick and myself in?
I have a collection of texts and scrolls I have brought with me. if none of this kingdom's inhabitants were gifted in their blood. Fortunately, Chinook is an apt pupil. Unfortunately, he may not be up to snuff. Tomorrow, instead of heading back into town for any remaining scrapes, I want you to stay here and work with our draconid friend and myself, copying down these lovely texts you've brought. How does that sound?
Serendipity was a constant blessing and curse for me during this journey. This stock of scrolls and texts would be incredibly helpful. Finding a time when I could keep Carnager in during the morning was my exact role in the night's escape plan. But would tomorrow be too soon or too short of notice? Resolutely, in my head, I decided, given Myrink, and to a lesser extent, Merkine's plotted betrayal, the more off the footing of the knights meant the better odds for Kyne's kidnapped son. I agreed to stay tomorrow and aid Lord Natanus Carnager. With a toothy vampiric grin that stretched from ear to ear, crossing Carnager's pale face, I took my leave for the evening. Later, at our dorm hideout in the Palamedes University, Ahani was in a far more positive mood, especially hearing of the assault on the university in her absence, and the plan to rescue several prisoners at risk to our group's lives. She joked that suddenly staying in the forges and away from this particularly distracting endeavor might be for the best. However, she agreed with Kind and Myrink that rescuing Kind's son was far more important than the political welfare of two factions we knew little about. Myrink arrived later and told us that the Knight Lieutenant Valwen was able to command the Vigabane skeletons at Kind's request, offhandedly mentioning Valwen needed to give up something that he cherished, an aspect of the Undead Legion I wasn't aware of.
Some sort of command sigil on the doors demanded it. He had to burn a letter from his grandparent he carried with him since childhood. It was rather bizarre for a ritual, but far from the bloodiest I've seen. He was nearly in tears, but a speech about honor rejuvenated him quite a bit. But in the end, we only managed to command a few dozen of the enormous cavern's horde. No clue how Kind commands the remaining host. He must have clocked hundreds.
With a shrug, she flopped onto Estelise's bed. Fortunately, the nurse and Silibin had taken the night to better restore Kind. I then felt it prudent to tell her of Carnager's offer tomorrow, and she once again took on the posture of the mercenary I continued to forget that she truly was.
That is soon, but yes, I will contact them later tonight. Valwen and his men are still squatting in the university during their occupation, and the sooner they can leave, the better, though it may be empty-handed.
I suddenly had a thought run through my head. If Myrink was successful and managed to free Baby Court and the adolescent elven babysitter, her position in the castle could be compromised. She then became quiet for a few moments.
We'll cross that bridge if we come to it. You have more than enough data for your school book on King Cruntor, yes? Are you not prepared to leave this city behind after tomorrow?
I stared between her and Ahani for a few more moments as that loaded question hung dangerously in the air. Hi, my name is Matthew Lewis, and I do the voice of Kycell Bakshi, along with all the additional voices in the Forgotten Minotaur King. I hope you enjoy the podcast and continue to listen into the future. If you want to support my content, please donate to my Patreon, Matthew Lewis Podcasts. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Matthew Lewis Podcasts, all one word. Follow me on Twitter at Matthew Lewis P. Or leave a positive maximum star review on your podcast app of choice. If you found this podcast, I assume you're familiar enough with the genre to know how important reviews are to the survival of a channel. And I hope you recommend this to your friends. Or if you didn't like it, you could recommend it to your enemies, and I'll teach them a lesson. Keep it sleazy, folks, and thank you.